It's called Genesis, and I brought in today the original Genesis that I made a mold from. Here, it's in limestone. This was the sixth piece in a series that I started after I had done a number of Jewish-German reconciliation projects in Germany, where I was confronting Germans as an American Jewish person who stereotyped Germans. I stereotyped them as what those Germans did, and I crossed the big bridge internally to go and actually meet them, and it was a heart-to-heart meeting. So this gap that you see in the sculpture was like two people facing each other, dealing with this divide, a cultural divide of war. But I wanted to symbolize it as one body, one human family. And so that's what emerged. And when I finished the limestone, I came home and I showed it to my German wife, Lisa, who was a blessing in my life. And she said, I thought I was done. I thought that I couldn't surpass the beauty and the complexity of what that piece represented to me. And she said, well, that would be really great as a public art piece, which then led me to create 3 large ones and displayed them in public art. I presently have 2 of them on our property. One is in the city of Everett in a memorial park. So anyway, so here I have this design, and then when I was done with the design, I thought, well, there's something about this piecework that came about through the reconciliation. And so I started a series where I took the gap and the hole, and I called this series Peace Portals. And that gap, narrow gap, represents that you can't take everything with you when you're kind of going through a peace portal. You have to leave something behind. So what is it? What is it in my baggage of prejudice and hate and judgments that I have to let go of? So that's what this series represented. I don't know, I've done 20 or 30 of these, and I have an 8 or 9 foot tall one on our property. You're welcome to come see. So then, from there, I started looking at this, circle with the hole through it, and I decided to invert the form and bring the hole down through the middle, and I started a series that I call manna. Manna, biblically, is the food that is given to all of us. So for me, I could symbolize that by bringing this hollow core, which would allow light to come in and fill the form of the glass. And so I did a whole series of manna sculptures, but the geometry of manna is a torus. And the torus really was intriguing to me because I felt that it was really kind of this symbolic, like radiating field around our bodies. Some of it referred to us as our aura. Some of us refer to it as the field around our heart. Our heart energy is radiating out around us. So from there, I started to design torus forms. And this one back here, which I displayed here in the museum last year, was a 4-spiral torus. And I wanted to represent the 4 directions, so I went with a 4-spiral torus. And this is in onyx, and it introduced me to a technology, which sometimes series, like, when I started to cast glass, a lot of the glassies said, well, you're a stone carver, you can't just come in here and join us, we're die-hard glass people. And I said, no, as a sculptor, I can work in paper mache, I choose the material to express my ideas. So so when I learned about glass casting, so one day I had a guy in Canada say that his father just bought him a computer-controlled robotic stone router. So just kind of wrap your heads around a computer that's controlling a robotic arm that's going to tell it exactly what to remove from the stone. And so I developed this design on a CAD computer file, and I sent it to him, and he sent me a roughed out piece of stone that I then filed and sanded and finished. So
became the black marble.
I'm getting there. Thank you. So the series generating, learning about new technologies, computer-generated sculptures. Well, what was happening was that after 20-some years of dealing with really heavy stones, my body was starting to fail, and I said, well, I got to keep going somehow. I'm going to design now and find ways to render those designs into three-dimensional forms. So I came up with this design that I went to 9-spiral form, this torus. And this, those of you that know me, it showed up in my meditation here in 2012, sitting on a couch early one morning, and I saw it, and I said, that movement is the movement of creation, because I was sitting in silence, and all of a sudden I saw this movement of stillness, thought form. If I invested in that thought form, I would make it more real. Kind of like if you wake up and you got an argument with your neighbor, it tends to perpetuate itself. Like the story of our life gets perpetuated, when we first wake up in the morning. So I'm giving you some metaphors here. Hopefully I'm not losing you. But the idea is that from the seed of silence, all this artwork has been created. There was nothing before the idea showed up of what I'm going to make. Once that idea showed up, then we started investing in it, and that investment is kind of like, oh, I believe that I can do this. I'm going to make this happen. And so I saw that as the pattern of the universe creating itself. That every single thought that we have, there's silence before it. There's silence after it. We compress it into this ongoing film of our lives. But if we slow it down like it's frames of film, there's space there in between every thought and idea. So I slowed it down, and all of a sudden I saw the pattern. And then I had to figure out, oh, well, now I'm going to make it into a sculpture. So just making it into a sculpture was verifying that theory that I had, which was silence, thought, investing in that thought, and making it real. And so I made the first one, proving my point, and then it was like, wow, this is an important symbol. I'm going to reduce my computer file down to where people could wear it as a symbol. And initially, with this solid design, it was super heavy. This thing, if it hit you in the mouth, you'd knock your teeth out, and I wanted to lighten it up. So then I'm learning about 3D metal printing. This is printed in stainless steel, and it goes into a furnace, and bronze wicks up into all the air spaces around the particles of stainless steel, and it forms this composite metal. Amazing science in that. And so I said, how can I lighten it up? And he says, well, the manufacturer, you need escape holes. So I said, I'll take out the valleys I'll remove the valleys and shake out all that extra metal powder. And I designed this. This is the largest 3D metal printing I've done. 24 karat gold plated. Pretty special. And so then I had this idea, well, I want to cast these in glass. How can I do that? And so I then started researching, is there any 3D printed material that'll burn out like wax or melt out like wax in a lost wax casting? So back in January, I produced 2 models, and I went up to work with a glass casting friend of mine up in Seattle, Carol Milne, who does a lot of really intricate, she does glass knitting. She knits with casting, with screw wax. And then she casts it, and she takes all that investment out of like socks and gloves. And so I said she could help me take all of the investment out of the center. And so I asked her, could we collaborate? I produced 2 models like this in 3D printed material, and we burned them out, and we cast 2 of these. The first one was a complete failure. The investment mold broke and the glass ran out and it was a mess. And this one is like 75% successful. It's giving you an idea where I'm going. So then the next thing was, well, why don't you get your own 3D printer and start making models that you can invest. How am I doing?
You're fine.
I'm good. So I bought a 3D printer last year through Kickstarter. It was basically, the specs on it seemed like fantastic. And when it showed up in March of this year, it has been a learning curve greater than any learning curve that I've had so far in life. It's really problematic and it's not functioning well right now, but I brought a couple samples to show you the idea, like here. So this is just a small model. I'm wanting to scale up, right? So in this particular model, this would be invested with investment material, which is primarily plaster and silica flour. And then this would get burned out. At about 1,000 degrees, this will disappear. This is primarily cornstarch. I wouldn't do it in red because that might influence the mold, but they have this in natural material. So I would print it in natural material, I would burn it out, and then I would melt my glass into it, and then I would weed out all the little pieces of investment that's inside, and I would have a glass sculpture. So I'm going to just stop at this point to just tell you, or just to open to questions, but do you see the evolution of this? And at one point, one of the really major things that happened when I came up with this design was that as a peace builder all of my adult life, I said, you know, the main reason that we fight with each other is that we feel that we can't agree with our differences. You know, so this to me represented a three-dimensional peace sign, the three-dimensional peace symbol, because even though there are, let's say 9 races, or I use 9 because it's a mystical number, but even though there's like, say, 9 religions or 9 races or 9 beliefs that we can argue with, we're all one human race. We're one humanity. So that became the theme for me to move more as a peace builder than a fine art artist. And so that led to a campaign here in Ojai, and in 2015, April, we became an international city of peace based upon the energy and spirit of this design. So I'm happy that I was able to contribute to that. and to make Ojai a peaceful place for all of us to live, and you're all contributing to it. There is a postcard that I have on your chair that invites you to be an ambassador of peace. It's like easy. Just be peaceful, you know? We're all doing it. Okay, I've said enough. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation on Art for Peace and the evolution of my art forms. If you'd like more information, please log on to holosforpeace.com or bermansculpture.com. Thanks so much.